All right, I think we are good to go, I believe.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
Welcome. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Welcome to the 60th episode of the Korea Podcast. I'm officially relabeling it to the Korea Podcast. It's been a Hagwon Startup Podcast for 59 episodes. And the Hagwon part comes and goes, and I find that more and more there's a lot. It's just a lot more interesting to talk to people who are living in South Korea, and so that's what the Korea Podcast is about. It's about life in South Korea, and there's going to be topics about Hagwons as well, but generally talking to people that are living, expats that are living and working in South Korea and doing things that are more than just teaching English. Of course, there's a bunch of people who are only teaching English, but that's cool as well. We all have been there, I think. Today, Chris Tharp is here with me. I posted a brief little intro. I'm not going to read it. Chris is a published and accomplished writer, columnist. He published a couple of books, Dispatches from the Peninsula and The Worst Motorcycle in Laos. Very interesting titles. I didn't even know. I got wind of Chris from an article that he posted on one of the Facebook groups. I read it and I thought it was very well worded, and so I messaged him and said, "Hey man, would you like to come onto the podcast and have a chat?" And he said, "Sure." So here you are. Here's Chris. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, Jack. How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
It's okay. I'm okay. It's okay, I guess. I wandered around today, slept in, and, there was kind of a malaise that set into me today. My mind was in a fog, but I managed to come here, cook a little dinner, and now I'm ready to talk.
Fantastic. So, in a while, just because I don't know, I like the flow of the podcast to be kind of natural, And I usually ask people the same questions of like, what brought you to Korea and stuff. But in your bio, you said that you've been here for a decade and a half.
Yeah, 15 years. Coming on 16, actually. This summer will be 16 years, August 5th.
Yeah. So you came here in 2000, like 5 around there, right?
2004, yeah.
Yeah, so about a year longer than myself. So you're a lifer.
Yeah, I'm old school. I'm a lifer. I will live and die in the Peninsula. Yeah, for better or for worse. But that's it's where I ended up, and it's treated me pretty well, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe we could start with the regular questions, like what brought you to Korea in 2004?
Well, I had been doing. My background in the States was in the arts. I was a theater artist. I had a theater company for 10 years. I'd studied theater in Seattle at Cornish College of the Arts. And I had a group that did pretty well in Seattle. And I also worked as a professional improv comedian. And then we went down to LA to get our development deal with HBO or whatever the dream is. Because, we had done pretty well in Seattle.
Right.
And so we're like, hey, let's go conquer the next thing, or, let's cash in on this. So we moved to LA in 2000 and got a house together, my group and some other people from Seattle, the sort of group of Seattle expats in LA. And I stayed down there for 3 years, 2000 to 2003, kind of grinding it away, and had some small successes. But at the end of the day, I just got burned out and I was tired of being broke, and I wanted to see the world. So I did a stint in Chicago for 6 months and then was back in Seattle and kind of spinning my wheels, deciding what to do with this next chapter of my life. And I knew I wanted to go somewhere far, whether it was Alaska or abroad, but I wanted to do something interesting and kind of weird. And when I was in Chicago, I spent the winter kind of holed up. I went to the library and I just read travel book after travel book. And I started doing this armchair traveling, and I just wanted to see the world. And I had known that teaching English in Asia was a thing. I had a couple friends that had come to Japan and Korea in the late 90s. And so I knew it was maybe a possibility. And then one day I was in my hometown of Olympia, Washington, and I was surfing on Craigslist looking for a job. And alas, here came an ad saying, come teach English in South Korea. Want a taste of an adventure? Blah, blah, blah. All you need is a degree in something, anything. Right. And I'm like, okay, I have that. So I applied for the job. 2 days later, they interviewed me over the phone and hired me. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane.
Wow.
And I landed in Busan right in the summer during the beach season, got a place in Haeundae, and worked for a Hagwon my first year, really well-funded. We worked hard, but it was they took care of us, and I had a great time. So I never left. But yeah, I came here just to come for a year and just have a taste of adventure, and it ended up being a brand new life for me. So who knew?
Nice. Yeah, coming of new comings. I just completely forgot to bring that up. If you're new here to this podcast, if this is your first time visiting, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Help us grow. Like the video, and if you choose to support the channel as well, check out there's a Patreon link in the thing below. If that's your prerogative. Cool. So when you first came to Korea, Chris, I guess you were not, I don't know, like what was your goal? Did you come here just to teach English? Was that your first kind of aim, or were you shooting for the stars straight away?
No, I mean, I was a failure when I came to Korea. I mean, a lot of, people like to play up the trope of the loser, deadbeat English teacher. And I fit that in many ways. Now, back in the States, I had tried to do something pretty big. And
well, you weren't a failure. You ran a company for 10 years, you said, right? Prior to coming.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. But that it ended up basically failing. And so I came here. I was just happy to have a stable job and an apartment I didn't have to pay rent on. I had to pay $100 maintenance fee. So when I came here, I just wanted to enjoy myself for a year, and then I planned to go back home or somewhere else. But things just happened so easily for me. It's kind of funny. I used to say, I arrived at immigration, passed through, and suddenly I had a new job, a new apartment. I got a girlfriend in the first week I was here. I had a brand new set of friends. I felt like I'd entered the witness protection program. It's like they just handed me a bag with a brand new life. Said, here you go. And, okay. But what I started doing right away, like a week in, this is when blogging was first kind of coming. And I was a writer back in the States. I was I wrote many plays. I was a playwright. I mainly wrote for the theater. But I'd been writing for my whole life. I did a little fiction. But I started a blog like every newbie, fresh off the boat English teacher. I started my Korean blog, but this was pre-Facebook. So I started just writing honestly about my life in Korea, and I got readers, and it started doing pretty well. And so then I kind of realized maybe writing could also be a thing, because I had also prepared myself to come to Asia and see the world by reading, maybe like 50 or 60 travel books in one winter. Maybe not that many, but it was a lot. So that was all kind of percolating in my mind. So once I arrived here, I'm like, okay, I want to just like explore and write and teach. I enjoy teaching. Teaching is just performance. So my background as a comic and an actor served me very well, because I think half the time, what is expected of the foreign teacher here is more entertainment than pedagogy.
Yeah, I think for the most part, particularly when it comes to teaching at Hagwons, right?
Yeah, entertain the kids, keep them happy, and keep the money flowing. And I figured that out right away. And so I did well that first year in the Hagwon universe. It wasn't tough for me because I just, first of all, I was happy to be doing a job. I mean, yeah, I had like 7 classes a day. I was working like 35 teaching hours a week. It was a lot of time in the classroom. But I was just, I was getting paid pretty good money, what I thought, just to talk to kids and play some games and read some books. I had done terrible backbreaking hard labor back home. I'd had the shittiest jobs imaginable. So this was, this kind of paradise for me. And I would meet these expats who would complain about it. Oh, they made us change. We can't play CDs anymore. And the mothers complain, I'm going to go to Japan. It's better in Japan. I'm just, and then it occurred to me that these young people who moved here and hated it are just people whose lives hadn't sucked back at home yet, Right. They just never had it tough. I don't know. Some of these, I've done some comedy here too over the years too, and so I might be recycling a couple jokes here, but it is based on my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I totally understand. Like my first year in Korea was similar. Like I heard a lot of people complain. But I mean, I think most people go through like the honeymoon phase, right? There's like the first 6 months, you're kind of walking around, starstruck and wondering what people are complaining about. And then after the first 6 months, you start to realize, you start to become aware of the differences and what people, just how different Korea is, right?
Well, there'd be two kind of complainers. I mean, you get the bitter lifers like us. You go on any Facebook expat forum and it's full of them. People who've just been here too long and have Korea derangement syndrome, where they need to go. Where they've hated it for years, but they're just addicted to that easy paycheck and lifestyle. But they got to go. There's that kind of complainer, and then there's also some. I would experience people who had been in Korea for under a year who were moaning about just very basic things. And these were people who just perhaps weren't equipped to live in a foreign culture yet. For me, it was paradise, at least the first 6 months, the first year. I would have nightmares about going home, really. I would wake up in a cold sweat, that I was suddenly back at SeaTac Airport. And I had to go work at the Target warehouse or some crappy job. But later on, of course, I had some negative experiences in Korea too, or, semi-negative things that made me reconsider my life here. But overall, it's been positive. And that was started that first year, those first few months. But I was lucky. I arrived in Busan, which is one of the best places to live. It's a great city. I arrived in Haeundae, which is like the beach community during the festive beach season, and I met people right away. I socialized. I had a good job. I didn't have a sketchy boss that was, trying to cheat me out of my pension or not paying me. I had a nice apartment. It was small but well apportioned and clean and modern, and so things worked out really well for me. And I absolutely realized that other people who come here, especially teachers, don't have that same experience. So I was lucky for sure.
So what would you say was like, so you started doing your blog. What would you say was the first time that writing became a bit more serious? By the way, I posted 2 of Chris's links. The first one is, what is it? Journal portfolio.
Journal portfolio. This is a new thing I've done. It's a portfolio of a lot of my writing. It's not everything. Most of my blog stuff isn't up there, but it's published articles.
Right. Okay. So
links to books and other things.
Link below the video if anybody's watching. If you're watching and you're curious, want to find out about what Chris has accomplished so far, just the link is below the video. But I'm looking I just looked at the articles, and you've written quite a bit. There's a whack of articles listed. There are several books under the book link. Oh, 3 books, yeah?
Yeah, there's 3 books, yeah.
Okay, pretty cool. Either way, man, most of us have not even managed to write 1 chapter for 1 book, so you know what I mean? That's pretty awesome. So what would you say was the first written piece that kind of, pushed you towards professional writing, the route of the professional writer, I guess?
Yeah. Well, probably that first year or 2 I had a blog on a platform called LiveJournal, which I still think exists and no one uses. That's like the MySpace of blogging, It's a very early 2000s one, but it was kind of a pre-Facebook thing too. You could blog, but you also had friends, and you could kind of, you could I don't think they had a like button, but you could comment, and you had avatars. And so I started writing there about Korea. And I did one piece that was I used to at my first Hagwon, I had this class of these 3 kids who they were upper level kids. They were smart, and they had a lot of English at home or whatever, but they were very naughty, really nasty little kids, in that they would they just would obsess on dark, negative things. And so we started doing this thing, which I'm not sure if it would fly today, but we would open the class, and they would, all 3 of them, one at a time, they would go to the board and draw a diagram on how they wanted to kill me that day. And so, and they would go into details. I mean, chopping me up and throwing me out of an airplane and burning my body. And, the one girl used to draw me with wearing women's underwear and as a giant pig man. And it was like this twisted stuff. And I just thought it was funny. The funniest thing that I had ever come across. And my philosophy was, hey, if they're speaking English, even if it's slightly inappropriate, as long as they're having fun and speaking English, we're accomplishing the mission here. So I wrote a piece about that, I remember, on my blog, and it blew up a bit. It went semi-viral. It wasn't huge, but, it got passed around, and a bunch of people commented. And then I realized, I might be onto something here. And yeah, that's right. And there was a website back home. There's a great company in Seattle called Archie McPhee that sells novelty goods, like hand buzzers and whoopee cushions and library action figures. I mean, it's just random, silly kind of toy products. And they started a blog where they would do articles and weird stories. And I knew the guy who was working for that from my improv days. And he had been reading my blog, and he reached out to me. And I started writing for them, and they paid $25 a piece. Mm-hmm. And so it just stacked up. And when I went home a year later to Seattle, I got a check for a $250 check, I think. But that's the first time I had ever gotten a check for writing.
Right.
And it was sweet.
Yeah.
They took me out to lunch. They gave me $50 credit in the store and gave me a check for my blog pieces. It was good. So then I kind of realized, okay, maybe there's a future in this. And some other websites contacted me, or I put in, got published here. And then a guy who used to live in Korea, worked at a university in Seoul, moved to Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. He started a independent literary press.
Okay.
A book press, him and his partner, and it was focused on Asia Pacific writing, novels, whatever, essays, short stories, but books. And so he contacted me and asked me, and this was in 2009, 2008. I'm trying to, it was somewhere around there. He contacted me and asked me if I wanted to write a Korea book, a memoir about my life. Mm-hmm. Teaching in Korea, traveling in Korea. I'd also lost my parents. I think my mother was still alive at this point, but my father died, and then my mother died less than a year later. So I was living over here. I was dealing with the mortality of my parents, and so I had this kind of cocktail of all this stuff going on. And Marshall, my friend Marshall, who runs the press, and he's a great writer himself, he said, we want to do a Korea book. So I wrote that. They put it out, and it did pretty well. I mean, it's a tiny press with no real PR muscle. Mm-hmm. But people liked the book, and a lot of people who were interested in moving to Korea to teach bought it. It was one of those. These days, it's a little dated. I think they're probably newer books. Mm-hmm. But at that time, there weren't very many resources, aside from some websites, where people who were interested in coming over here to teach what it might be like. And I go into life in the Hagwon and the university and just basic Korean stuff, but also just my experience. Right. And I tried to make it honest. Yeah. And they produced my next book, which was a collection of travel essays, because I spent 10 years and I traveled all over Asia, and I really got into travel writing, and 16 of those are published in The Worst Motorcycle in Laos. So
yeah, you want to talk about that book? What brought that book on? What is it?
Well,
The worst motorcycle in Laos. It almost sounds like you went on a trip through Laos, and the picture of it is, I guess, like, maybe I could figure out how to throw that onto the screen here.
Well,
but anyway,
the picture that's
no, go ahead.
the picture's not the actual motorcycle. That was just a cover they came up with at the publishing company at Signal 8. No, I had been traveling, so starting in 2005, I guess, that was my first trip outside of Korea. I moved to Korea in 2004, and then 2005 for the Lunar New Year holiday. And luckily, again, my Hagwon was very good and let me take my vacation time when I wanted. So I bookended it with the Lunar New Year, and I took a 10-day trip to Vietnam, to southern Vietnam.
Okay.
With my friend Sam, and then after that, and then I got a university job my second year here. So suddenly I had scads of vacation time. So I started traveling in earnest and traveling all over Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia, and went to China several times, New Zealand, the Philippines, Japan, just everywhere in the kind of region here.
Right.
And so after about 10 years, I wrote about it on my own. I self-published stuff. A few other pieces got picked up by some websites and whatnot. And the worst motorcycle in Laos is actually I say Laos because that's what we say in the States. And I know I should say Lao, but I always feel like I'm being pretentious. When I drop the S, I say it the French way. That was actually an essay that won an award in 2008. And so by the Traveler's Tales, which is a publishing company out of San Francisco, I think, and they do an online competition every year, and I won one of the awards with that. And so that was cool.
Yeah, sure. That would be cool.
And so that ended up, so Marshall, after the Korea book, he's like, we want to put out your next book. What do you want to do? And I thought about just going, I thought about maybe just going to Laos, however you want to say it, for maybe like 2 months and just doing a book on that, because that's kind of my favorite country in East Asia. But then I pitched to him the idea of just 16 travel essays, or 20, I think we had, and we cut it down to about 16, of all these places, and just personal travel logs and my take. And we did that, and it's I'm really proud of that book. I thought I really leveled up. I think the quality of the writing's better than my first book. The first book sold better because I think the subject matter is maybe more pressing for people wanting to come to Korea. But I I feel as a writer I really grew with the second book. I felt like the writing was better, Right. I just got better. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, I just threw your the book I had a little while ago. I had it here on. Maybe I can put it up here again.
Okay, let me get this on my other computer. The feed.
Yeah, so there's the worst motorcycle in Laos, and the second one, I guess, that you published. Actually, the worst worst motorcycle in Laos seems to have been published in 2014, or is that just?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2011 was the 6 years in South Korea. That was your kind of mini biography, right?
Yeah, Dispatches from the Peninsula. That's my memoir, my Korea memoir. And then in 2014, I finished writing The Worst Motorcycle in Laos, and that was published. Okay. And then last year, I do have a third book, but I don't really promote it because I co-wrote it. It's not my own, and it's not really available outside of Russia. Okay. If you live in Russia, it's called, I believe the English title is called Jeff Monson, The Way of the Warrior.
Yeah.
It's a long, I won't tell the whole story how it came into be, but Jeff Monson is, he was an MMA fighter, and he fought in the UFC, fought for the UFC title in the early 2000s. He was kind of a early guy in that sport, and he went on to become pretty famous in Russia. That was kind of his secondary career. I went to high school with him. He came to fight in Korea, and I hooked up with him. He found out I was doing some writing, and we collaborated on his memoir, which ended up getting published in Russian in Russia. So it's available in Russia. I have a couple copies. Of course, I do not speak Russian, so it's lost on me. So that's my third book, and I was a ghostwriter for him, or a co-writer, so it's not my own thing. But I did do that, and that was a 3-year project.
Okay.
Which is a whole and I could write a book about writing that book. It got pretty crazy.
Well, but still, very, very cool to have that.
Yeah, it's a notch in my thing, and Jeff emailed me today. As soon as this thing blows over, I still might go to Russia to do a book event with him once, hopefully, if Corona ever subsides.
Yeah, right. How long does it take you to write these books?
Well, that's a good question. The first book was commissioned. They said we want a book, and we came up with a rough deadline. I think I knocked most of it out in the course of a year. Now, some of the material had been done in my blog, but maybe a year and a half. I mean, like the actual writing, but then there's the editing, where you go back and forth with the publisher and the editor. And the first book was kind of a war of attrition with the editor, because it was my first book, and there was a lot of bad writing in there, or a lot of rookie mistakes.
Right.
A lot of stuff that needed work, and not just copywriting or copy editing, not just changing typos and that, like style stuff.
Right.
The second book, I mean, it's hard to say, because most of those essays were written over the course of 10 years.
Okay.
And so that was more of a compilation. So it took about a year to compile that.
Mm-hmm.
And the third book was 3 years. But that was like transcribing sound files and Skype calls with Jeff. That was a collaboration. So I don't know. It depends. I mean, I have a novel that I'm half finished with. If we look at you can't see it.
No, can't see it.
No, I have a whiteboard with all the outline, and
that was like hanging up on the wall somewhere.
It's kind of sad, because I finished half this novel, and there is a publisher, another tiny little publisher in Asia that is interested in putting it out, but it's I finished half of it last year, and then I just never started it again, and it stares me down like the great white whale. Especially during this coronavirus, I have all this time, and I'm doing a lot. I'm doing some writing, but not nearly enough. And I just, like, every day I wake up in shame in the face of the unfinished novel. I'm not really a fiction guy. It's a kind of I do some fiction, but of course fiction is very sexy. We all want to have a novel out, don't we? So,
sure. Yeah.
So wish me luck in that.
Yeah, good luck, man. By all means. Speaking of Corona, we're going to jump to that topic. Just wanted to say hi quickly to our listeners. There's Kenta. Kenta says, I like this guy. And Sophia Azran was here for a little bit, but I guess she's disappeared. She's gone to bed. So thanks for stopping by. Remember to hit the likes on the video. And we're going to Chris's to the article that prompted this podcast today. So COVID-19 looking toward the U.S. from South Korea. Chris wrote this article, or it was published on medium.com March 15th, and that's basically the article that I got wind of, and I read it, and I was like, hey man, this guy knows how to write. It would be cool to talk to him. So
just to be fair, Medium is basically a blog site. This is a self-published piece. It wasn't commissioned, or I just put this up myself, and it wasn't edited or anything.
Oh, I know. I've got a Medium account too. I think I published a couple of articles. I wrote one on because I think Medium kind of came about around the same time as the whole Bitcoin craze came, because it's a very free. There's a lot of cryptocurrency stuff posted on it.
Medium. That was kind of one of the engines that started Medium. Is a lot of writing about crypto stuff.
Yeah, right. So I think I've got a couple of articles posted on there. I think I during those heydays I built a mining rig myself, and just a small one.
Really?
out of purely as an experiment. And so I kind of wrote down the steps of how to build a mining rig and start mining that one particular cryptocurrency, which it worked out fine because I basically showed the article to the guys working at the company, and they kind of reimbursed me for the computer that I purchased in order to build a rig. So cool.
Good. Even Steven.
Yeah, even Steven, exactly. But so yeah, I'm aware of that. So Medium is a pretty good, it's a blog, but it's not a blog. It's like a professional blog. It's a little bit better than Blogger, I would say. Like the articles that I see, just the presentation of it and the way it's managed. I personally like Medium. It just has more of a better feel to it than like a regular blog,
Yeah, that's what attracted me, because I've blogged at several different blogging platforms over the years. I started at LiveJournal, and then I went to Blogspot, where I still have it. I don't really use that anymore. WordPress, sorry. But I think I had a Blogspot for a minute too.
Yeah.
And you can do all sorts of custom stuff and make it nice, but Medium is a very clean look. You can't screw with it. It's just black and white, but it's just it features writing. The writing really lives, which is good. There's some things I don't like about it. You can get lost in the infinite nature of it all. And there's the clap. What I don't like is the clap format for Medium. Facebook or most things you have a like. Mm-hmm. Facebook is the famous thumbs. When Medium has a clap feature, and most people who are outside of the Medium universe don't know that you can clap 50 times for a piece.
Yeah.
So most of the people who read my stuff come to Medium outside of Medium. Every once in a while I get a piece picked. You can get a piece picked up and it goes on a paywall, and then it goes within their ecosystem. But most people don't even clap. So I get very few claps even if I get a couple thousand hits, almost no one claps. And the way you get noticed within the Medium world is they base it on claps. So if people don't know about the claps, then so I hate the claps. But but otherwise it's great. Okay.
Yeah, right. So what prompted you? Well, I know what prompted, but the topic is COVID-19 looking toward the USA from South Korea. And you basically go through the article is kind of divided into two parts. So you start off by talking about Korea and how the medical system is perceived, how differently it is perceived here in South Korea versus to how it's perceived back home for you in the States, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like the way you see it, from what I understand, from what I gather from the article, the medical system in Korea is kind of part of everyday life. Koreans seem to jump to a hospital, at the smallest thing. I've got a sneeze. Gotta go to the hospital, get some medicine. Stuff like that back home. It's unheard of. Because Canada's got this free healthcare, but people don't take advantage of it as much as you could say Koreans do. So even though it's free in Canada, we don't usually go to a clinic unless we're having some severe flu symptoms or something like that. Like we don't go with a mild sneeze or runny nose or stuff like that. These things are taken care of at home, right? And in the States, you probably wouldn't want to do that because, heck, I don't know. I can imagine the bills that you'd be receiving for that kind of stuff.
Even if you have like a gold star plan, you're not going to go to the doctor for a cold. And and I opened the article with that. So many times in Korea, I come into class, hey, how you doing today? And they're like, oh, teacher, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just have a cold. Oh, did you go to the hospital? Right. Have you seen the doctor? I'm the hospital. What are you talking about? I'm not going to the hospital. I have a cold. I have cancer. But then I realized they had a very different relationship with their healthcare system. And I've actually talked to adult students about this a lot, and they actually complain that maybe the system is overused for minor stuff. Because it's so cheap. It's not free. In Korea, you always have to pay something. But usually, for anything minor, it's a pittance. It's a few dollars.
Right. Like I find the Korean healthcare system is kind of a happy medium between the highly overpriced one in the US and the allegedly free but occasionally very hard to access one in Canada, you know?
Yeah. It combines elements. I mean, it is socialized healthcare, but there's always a copay. And for bigger procedures, that copay might be very big. So that's why, I mean, like I personally, as a, nearly 50-year-old human being who hasn't always taken the best care of my body, I have the Korean national healthcare, but I also have private insurance too, in case. Because if I had a motorcycle accident 5 or 6 years ago that was very serious, and that was a wake up call. Like, okay, you need to have your healthcare sorted out. But the Korean system's pretty good. And so the idea was to compare. It's not a very cursory comparison based on my experience, because I'm not an expert. I'm not an academic. I don't write that kind of stuff. But just sort of through my lens, the difference between the Korean response versus the American response, and also the way we kind of view our access to healthcare, and just a chance to rant at Donald Trump, who just drives me crazy. But get in line.
Yeah, that was the second part of the article, right? You jumped into that.
I'm just looking at the article now, and I talk about how the American response leaves a lot to be desired, and I place it on the shoulders of Trump, which maybe some people, I go on a bit of an anti-Trump rant, but I think you kind of have to do that. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced, because it's a crisis of leadership. I'm not saying the United States is going to come out unscathed, because the United States has structural and systemic problems when it comes to the infrastructure and healthcare. But something like this, you need real leadership, and I don't see it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think in terms of I don't know, what are your views on the whole COVID thing? Worldwide in South Korea, there's a lot of panic, right? And it's not necessarily obvious. I don't know. I've got a lot of very mixed emotions, feelings. To be honest, right now it's scary, and it's scary not in a sense that I'm afraid of becoming sick, but rather I'm afraid of what will come if we continue to have these really strict restrictions on movement and the social distancing, and basically businesses are closed for prolonged periods, and it's having a serious economic impact on businesses like ours, for example, and that's what scares the heck out of me, because I'm honestly very confused. Like today, my wife was talking to a dude who owns a factory. So one of our clients, one of the kids' parents who send their kid to our school, the father owns a factory. I don't know exactly what. He owns a business of some kind. I don't know if it's a plant. But basically was talking to my wife, and they made an investment into our school. They wanted to send their kid here for a longer period, so they made an investment for a year. And now they withdrew the investment, which poses,
Yikes.
a problem.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. So it's really shitty for us, because we're taking a beating as it is already, and now this comes on top of it. And basically, he told my wife, he said, if I were you, I would talk to the landlord and think about withdrawing his offer, because things are not good. Like, he's talking about shutting his business down. And it's a very different industry, right? Because I don't know if he's in programming. I have no idea exactly what he does, but he's got some kind of business. So this is we're in the education industry, and granted, it's a private education, but it's a different industry. But so his standpoint was basically pack up and run, because things are about to get a lot worse. And so that's what scares me, man. I don't really know how to respond. I don't know what to do, because regardless of how severe this virus is, or how severe things are, I think things are made even worse by by people's response to it, by this whole this economic stagnation that we're experiencing right now, man?
Well, I think the bomb's already exploded, and right now, so I mean, however you choose or you can weather the storm that's coming, there is a storm coming. It's already here, but it's going to get worse and nastier economically. We don't know, but I mean, we've never seen anything like that. I mean, the whole economies are being shut down. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be painful. Obviously that's a fear for all of us, but especially if for someone like you who's in business for yourself, that makes it all the tougher. And I wish I had easy words for you, but the one good thing is, generally in times of economic slowdown, the education sector does well. I mean, at least the adult education sector, because people want to retrain, but also people are very sort of keen to get their education or the children's education to kind of top levels. So when things are good again, they'll be competitive. But of course, in Korea, there so much of this money that goes into private education is I'm not sure if I'd say disposable income, but it's income that's not paying the rent and not paying the grocery bills. And once you can't pay the rent and pay the grocery bills, I mean, maybe the Hagwon fee is going to be one of the first ones on the chopping block. I don't know, but I do know that things are shutting down here. I have a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, my hiking buddy. He lives north of here in another city, but very close to Busan. Him and his wife have a gongbubang. And they do very well. It's very popular. They just opened back up today. I want to ask him. He was predicting maybe 60% capacity, I think, like return rate right now.
Right.
But he also has a job he has one of those company jobs. He works for I'll just say a large manufacturing company that has a factory with many engineers who travel abroad a lot. So they need to keep their English. So he comes in every morning, has classes, or just basically is just there on call. I mean, he sits in the office, and anyone who wants to come in and bone up on their English, they have him available. It's kind of a nice perk for these company guys. And evidently, he says, as of last week, the whole factory's shut down.
Wow.
They're not making anything.
Really?
And what they make has nothing to do with any of this. It's just a thing you'd probably use in a car. Yeah.
So what's the reason that they shut down? For fear that somebody might drag in virus with them, because they were operating a skeleton crew, from what he told me, during the height of this. So things are even getting better now. I think they shut down just for economic reasons, because the business has slowed to such a degree to where they cannot justify making their thing. Right.
It's going to get bad. But I do see a silver lining here, and I don't know I have no idea your politics or what, and I don't want to get into that too deeply. But let's just talk about it in general terms, where perhaps this thing, what it does, will show people that there are other ways of organizing ourselves which might be better than we were doing before. That even if the economy shuts down and things are hard, that the world won't end either, and maybe the air gets cleaner, and there's some other good things, and that we realize that if we can organize, if we can tell everyone to stay home, and have a mass sort of mobilization to wherever it is in the state. Some places are doing it better, like my state, Washington State, is doing a pretty good job of, like, people are staying home. But let's say if we as a society can come together and tackle a massive problem, despite the real economic pain it may bring, then maybe we can do this for other things. And also maybe this idea that stuff that they kept telling us was too expensive to pay for before, stuff we could never afford, like in my country, healthcare, and now they're coming up with trillions of dollars out of the blue,
right,
to pay for stuff that was like impossible to access before. So maybe paying for things isn't impossible. It just depends on our priorities. And so I think there will be pain, but there might be some good things to come out of this. As the Great Depression produced some very good things, a lot of worker guarantees,
Yeah.
a lot of, the safety net, the basic idea of the safety net came out of the Great Depression.
Right.
But the problem is with the modern economy, and dare say the C word, capitalism, is the system will only do this when it's forced to, or the people who run it. Okay, and that's my rant.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, that's true. I think for the most part, it's a monetary system that's bound to fail, and I think there's a lot of talk about that coming towards it, and one of the reasons why the coronavirus is being so hyped up on the media, some claim that it's like to cover up, the failures of the banks, the major banks.
Maybe. Yeah, because there were many people, economists and just watchers of society, were predicting an economic crash, a coming economic crash, and not a little one, a really big one. It looks so. Perhaps coronavirus just accelerated something that was happening anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an economist, but
neither am I.
But I also have been. I'm almost 50 years old, and I've been through several big recessions, including, we remember, in 2008. I mean, that was pretty nasty. 2000, or 2001, I guess, after 9/11, that one's pretty bad. And then 1987, 90, maybe early 90s too.
Yeah, I think the last one they were saying that during the next recession may be so big, it may be irreversible. And so if this isn't it right now, brace yourself for anything that comes after the recovery, if that occurs right now. Because, right now we're having businesses closed down and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Well, this idea of a recession that never recovers. That's basically what happened in Japan, if I'm correct. Now, I was just recently in Japan, and Japan still, it seems vibrant and working, but for a lot of people in Japan, that economy doesn't work, and they've had like no inflation for 25 years, so which is good for a consumer, I guess, but also when you're talking about economic indicators, you want some inflation. It's kind of it's an indicator of an economy that's growing. Yeah, I was talking to people. I was in Osaka and up in Hokkaido, and the beer. Yeah, and I was drinking beer in Japan, and beer was like usually at a place about 500 or 600 yen for a Japanese beer, which is like $5 or $6. Usually $5.50. Yeah. But when I was in Japan 10 years ago, it was $5.50. When I was in Japan 14 years ago, it was $5.50. And people told me, basically prices haven't increased at all, but neither have wages or anything. It's been this kind of stagnation. So I don't know, but maybe that's a good thing. Do we need unlimited growth?
Well, that's exactly it. Is it necessary? I don't know.
But it is. But you're a businessman. You need to make money. So we want people to be doing well. Me too. I'm a teacher. I make most of my money from teaching. I still do. All this writing's been great, but it's still a part-time living.
Sure. And, but I think it's a circulation of economy of money, right? If you're a business and you're hoarding money, then you're collecting, you're growing as a business. But if you're not spending, then you're not feeding the economy, and it's not really good, right? So having a system that kind of circulates the money from one place to another, I think with stability, with like stable prices, without inflation, I don't know. Again, like you said, I'm not an economist, but would not make life a little easier? And then, that banks are not just printing money willy-nilly without anything to back it up and kind of rendering it useless.
I guess the reality is we're just in a place where we've never been before. Even with, the Great Depression was caused by just a massive over-speculation of the stock market, which crashed and a lot of people lost their shirts and kind of made everything come to a standstill. But this is different. This has many of those same factors, but also, it's a virus. It's something outside of the economy that is causing the economy to halt. So we can halt the economy, but then, you know, how long does it take to start up again? And do we even start it up in the same way? I don't know. I mean, you know, we might be looking back at the last few years as just easy street, the gravy train. I certainly had a good few years. Now, I've never made a lot of money in my life. I'm not a capitalist. I don't really own anything. But I mean, but you know, the last few years, income wise, were very good for me. Comparatively to my life, it was nice and relatively easy to come by. But I think those days might be over now. Oh dear, and no wonder why I'm drinking wine on your podcast.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I was just talking to my wife the other day, saying that we were just getting back on our feet, kind of, you know, financially stable, kind of comfortable, and so we decided to open the Hagwon. We moved to a larger school, and then kablamo, like nobody could foresee this. So I don't know. Let's hope. But you know, like you said, there's always a silver lining, I guess. Out of necessity comes invention, or necessity breeds invention.
Yes.
Say, you know, there's a lot of people, people in the ESL industry. They're trying out new things. You know, people moving online, moving their schools online. They're trying to develop things that they can use online. We are doing the same thing. We're trying to move online. You know, successfully, unsuccessfully, but yeah, people are always coming up with new ideas, new things that are, you know, they're trying to do.
Yeah, you'll have to, you know, it's sink or swim, to use a cliche, but really that's where we are. But the good news is for your line of work and a lot of the people who may tune into this podcast, because that was your original focus, is the education industry won't be sunk. People will always need education. People's children will still need to be educated. So it's relatively inoculated as far as that's concerned. But I think with the kind of discretionary income or extra income to spend, that's where, especially in this country, the ESL industry will take a hit. But it's not going to be a knockout punch. I mean, imagine if you opened a restaurant like in January, you know, like if you're a chef and you've been dreaming, and I've seen a few of them here, and of course in the States they're pretty much just done in the big cities. Like if you put, you get investors, you get some big restaurant, and you know it's like you built up your whole life to have your restaurant, and you open it up and this thing hits. I mean, you're done. I mean, people are still trying to do ordering delivery and pick up, but man, that's just not going to do it, and everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And I just feel so bad for those people. Or I have a lot of friends who are musicians back home. I came up in the music scene in Seattle. I'm a hobby musician myself, been in a lot of bands and stuff, but luckily I don't rely on that or even ever expect to make a living from that. But I have friends of mine in Seattle and Austin, some of these music cities back home, who are working musicians. These guys are top of their game, brilliant musicians, but it's gig to gig, and one bad month, it's like how are they going to do it? Some of these guys maybe have some savings, and people are doing online concerts, but those friends, and I have friends who are comedians. I have a lot of performance friends, because that's kind of the world I came out of, who are professionals, and I feel bad for these guys, because man, if gathering an audience is impossible right now, how many people are deprived of a livelihood that did that? I guess they're just going to have to work a crappy job like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Easy streets ended, baby. The cul-de-sac of broken dreams.
Well, but I think there's, there is an online presence. I think there's a lot of people maybe moving online. Like you just mentioned, online concerts. How does that work exactly?
Well, it's like this. You do it on a platform such as Skype or some other live streaming platform, and you set up your music and you play online, and then maybe it's PayPal or one of the is it Vimeo, the other, or Vimeo is a video thing. It's one of the other pay money transferring websites.
Okay.
And you ask for tips. You ask for cover charge. So I had a friend of mine who just did that like yesterday. My friend Anthony Garcia, brilliant musician, lived in Korea for a while. He's back in Austin, Texas, and travels all over Texas playing. And he did his, and he must have had a couple thousand people tuned in, and I know people were kicking tips, and so hopefully he made a few $100s at least.
Yeah.
Got to pay the rent. These guys got to. Another buddy of mine did the same thing, and they asked for money, and hopefully, and the idea is you don't have to cough up $40 for them, but hey, maybe just throw $5 their way if you can.
Yeah,
and
sure.
if a bunch of people do that, then it'll keep them afloat. But and these are high level professional guys, not like rich guys, but working musicians.
Right. Okay. Well, speaking on that topic, people listening, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. I see there's like 10 viewers, 5 likes. My dad is in the chat, and Andy is here. Andy says this would be the worst. I'm not sure what he's referring to. But also, if you are here, consider supporting the channel. Check out the Patreon link below the video. And I also posted links to Chris's stuff online, books and articles, so check those out as well. I think, Chris, for like channels that have over 1,000 subscribers, there's a thing called Super Chat. So I've seen a lot of people doing podcasts. Serpents a Day, he does podcasts with another fella, Lao, and they do podcasts about China, about COVID, and basically there's the Super Chat. People keep dropping a lot of money. So I think a lot of creators on YouTube particularly can monetize their presence through the Super Chats or like the Patreon submissions. So yeah, I could see a lot of musicians or comics even being able to monetize their existence, their online existence using that. Like if you can't book a massive gala somewhere, a theater, whatever, with thousands of people, I think you could probably do that from your own home if you have a small stage or whatever, right? And just run a live feed through YouTube or another platform that allows you to monetize your content.
That's the idea, and I'm not. Well, I suspect as we get fewer and fewer opportunities to have concerts, if this thing lasts for a long time, people will start to really make money doing that, because we still want to hear music.
Sure.
We still need content, so we'll pay for that.
Right.
Unless we all run out of money, and then no one can pay anybody for anything, and that's
there's always Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining, man. That's
mining,
digging for gold.
The singularity of a depression where we just run out of money.
Yeah. We
just don't do things anymore. No more things. Yeah.
Maybe that's the way of the world, man. Peter Joseph, he's got this vision, this view of a resource-based system in which economics run very differently, and it's not a not a money-based system that we have right now, because that's doomed to failure basically. But he's talking about a resource-based system economy that basically sustains itself, so to speak. So maybe that's what's going to happen, and that's basically what he was saying. Like people, because he's been talking about this for years and kind of trying to get people on his level and spreading his wisdom. But he also acknowledged that basically we need to have like a complete economic collapse and just a complete worldwide disaster for people to actually snap out and realize that the economy that we have right now has kind of a finite thing, and it's not sustainable. And one day it's just going to blap, explode, and from that explosion and the collapse, something good will happen. But I mean, in the process, the collapse is the scary thing, because that means there's going to be like millions of people dying from whatever reasons. It's not going to be pretty, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's probably inevitable at this point.
Yeah, let's just hope it's not going to happen like right now. Let's wait a few more years. Not this year yet.
Let me get old.
Yeah, right. Shit. You got kids, Chris?
No kids. I'm married. I have a Korean wife. We rescue animals. We have 3 dogs and a number of cats. So we're one of those people. We're rescuers, but no children. Yeah. One of the reasons is because I foresaw this coming.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people like that. Like they refuse to have children because the shitty world that we live in.
Maybe that's part of it, but
Yeah.
I love kids. And sometimes I wish I had kids, but this is not one of those times.
Yeah, right. 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 Well, we seem to be hitting on the 1 hour mark.
Yeah, here we are.
Any other words of wisdom, Chris, you'd like to share with the audience, the people that are still lingering here?
Well, stay healthy. Keep reading. Reading's the best thing you can do, especially as a writer. We need people to read. Exercise. I guess back home you're not supposed to leave the house. In Korea we can still go outside, and I do a lot of hiking. I just go alone or meet one friend. And for me that's been the greatest sanity preserver. Probably has been exercise.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's uncertain times. But we're all in it together, and I think we're going to see people coming together to help each other. I should hope so. Yeah.
Hopefully it'll pass.
Hopefully, yeah, indeed.
All right, man. Well, thanks for agreeing to come onto the show. People in here in the chat, remember to hit that subscribe button, like button. If you're interested in checking out some of Chris's work, head over to the links that I posted below the video and have a look at his books and articles and all his publications.
All right. Thank you, Jack. I've had a good time.
Likewise, man. Thanks for coming on. And yeah, stay safe, dude.
Indeed.
Cheers. Talk to you later. All right, Chris is gone. Very good chat. Interesting stuff. I'm feeling tired, man. Kind of drained this week. The past week, really, the weekend, and just this time. It's not very encouraging, yeah. But yeah, if you are here first time or repeated time, do all the things that I said. Hit the like, subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, try to share the video, share the channel with others. Help us grow, get us to monetization, because we can really use it. Consider supporting us on the Patreon. I've opened it, it started, I've got some ideas of what to provide on Patreon. I think I will use Patreon for creating videos on things that I can't really post here on the channel for censorship reasons or whatever, but the Patreon channel will be a collection of the uncensored Living Korea Jack posts, so to speak. So that's what's going to be happening there on the Patreon channel. So check that out if you want to consider supporting us here. Other than that, the past week I've only uploaded one video. Like I said, the week was a bit hectic. I wasn't able to upload another video. It was my birthday, so the birthday video is coming up. It's going to be posted on Wednesday. And then hopefully I'll try to post 2 videos this week. I don't know what about just yet. The second video will be. But so, yeah, come back. to the Live in Korea channel on Wednesday. I'll be posting another video. And for tonight, thank you all for tuning in, and have a good evening, have a good week, and remember to stay clean, stay safe. Don't panic too much about what's going on, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on in terms of the COVID and what's happening. And I would like to talk about that next week a little bit. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.